Every single one of you are invited later to a great party, a huge banquet. One catch, you've got to be poor. Mike was traveling on a business trip, and he was there checking in with the airline, and the attendant said, "Congratulations, we have upgraded your ticket. Finally, someone knows what I'm worth in life." He had that big smile from one side of his face to the other. He didn't pay attention to anything on that ticket. He just took it, and off he went. And when they announced, "Will the first class people please come on first for boarding?" he got his carry-on, and he had a smile, and he walked right up into that plane. No one stopped him. He just knew that he had been upgraded. He goes into that first class section. People had already gone in to find their seats, and there was one seat left, which meant it belonged to him. So he sat down. There he is in first class. You know, the place where all of you travel on first class? Good, I'm glad you left. All right, so there he is, big, wide leather seats, hot towels. They're serving beverages you can't even pronounce. He said, "So this is how the other half lives. He even drinks his water with his pinky showing straight up." At that very moment, the stewardess came over to him and said, "Excuse me, sir, but can I see your ticket?" He said, "Well, yes, you can. I've been upgraded." And she looked at him and she said, "Oh, there seems to be a miscommunication here. You were upgraded to Economy Plus." With that, you can just see how deflated he looks. She talked to him like he was a puppy who just did his business on the rug. So with that, he grabbed his carry-on, he picked up his pride, and he took the walk of shame. He went through first class, he went through business, he went through regular economy, and then he went to Economy Plus, which is false economy. It's just hope. There by the bathroom, Mike learned a hard truth. That sometimes when you grab a seat more important than you, life or the airline is more than happy to show you to the back. Jesus speaks pure sense to this story when he said, "The exalted will be humbled, and the humbled will be exalted." In more contemporary terms, what we learn in this and what Jesus is saying is that it's not good to be bumped by grace unless you're being booted by your pride. Something to that effect. Pride goeth before destruction. I also hear a lot of things such as the beatitude of blessed are the poor. I hear a lot of that. My travels recently, as you may know, did lead me and where I had to take an airline to get to my point of destination. I definitely didn't expect an upgrade. I didn't get one. I didn't assume a seat that was more important than me. I gladly took my seat where it belonged. I had that much space between the seat and my knees. I had my wife beside me, and 5 hours later we arrived. All right? There was no wide leather seat. There was no hot towels. There were no fancy drinks that were being served. But as I'm sitting there, I'm starting to think about those words, and I'm thinking about the poor. I think about the poor even more when we touched down in Seattle, and there I am. We found our hotel, which wasn't far from the pier that we were going to take off in our well-planned, wonderfully provided by our parents' cruise ship that we went on to Alaska. And as we're walking there in the streets of Seattle, my heart really sank. I mean, I've been through big cities. I've been through New York, I've been through Tampa, and I've been through many others. But Seattle was terrible in the regard that there were people everywhere that were truly poor. Now, we all have our understanding of who the poor are. But to understand who Jesus is talking about in the gospel today, I'm trying to relate as best as I can with who the poor are that I met there in that city. I mean, is Jesus talking about the poor, of the people that are living in the tents? Is he talking about the poor that are standing on the curb, just walking around in circles and shouting out loud to imaginary figures, cussing and doing all? I mean, what is this the poor that Jesus is talking about? So I gave a lot of thought to that. I thought a lot further when we were checked 2 or 3 times with high security measures to get on that incredible voyage, as many of you I think have been on before. You know the experience. And over a week's time, it kind of grows on you, where people in white jackets are serving you left and right. They're putting a white napkin, cloth napkin in your lap, asking you if you need anything. What can we do for you? And then sometimes I saw a few people that I felt overstepped their bounds, making demands. And I had a hard time rationalizing that when so much had been given. The service was so good. Why would anyone make demands? And I assumed that they just simply wanted more. And even with that more, I don't think that they were happy in their condition. Made me think further about who are the poor. When I see them on the corner, when I see them on the ship, when I see them even when I pass by on first class, no judgment to you who travel first class. And I think about this whole system of caste, of the haves and the have-nots. And here's Jesus on the Sabbath. He's invited to the house of Simon, the Pharisee, which is odd that a big fancy dinner by someone of religious understanding was throwing an event where there had to be servants working on the Sabbath. You see where I'm going with that? And there he is at a table, not assuming one that is more important than him, but he just sits at the table. He's known. And you can tell that the conversation is rigged because the person who has so much is asking him a pointed question, maybe like, how do you like our service? What else can we get for you, oh master teacher, in a condescending voice, wondering if he was going to say, oh, I need more. But he didn't. The remarkable thing about Jesus is that with all that he could have had, he refused it and instead put emphasis on the poor. The poor, the blind, the crippled, the lame, maybe those in our own understanding of the poor, not just financially. I hear the words coming out of the Old Testament reading. I hear them in the Psalm. I hear them in the Epistle today. In that Old Testament reading, there's a clear indication of who the poor are based on 2 evils. The 2 evils, the first is forsaking God, and the second is creating cisterns that crack, that cannot hold the living God. Poor isn't simply a matter of our socioeconomic, it's a spiritual poorness. It's when we, even though we don't have anything, even if you're on the corner of a street of Seattle, or even if you're on the cruise ship, or even you're in the airplane, poor is that spiritual place to where we dare not cross the line of those 2 most important missteps. One, forsaking God, and the other one, forsaking the creation that he made in you, in your purpose. That's what I saw. I saw people that were consciously, even in their mental state, whether exalted or lower, they were consciously forsaking God, maybe giving up hope. But even in economy plus, there is hope. Even when life sends you to the back, there is hope. And in the midst of that hope, there is Jesus. And Jesus is calling us in our poorness so that he can lead us through that wilderness, so that he can help us to go across that great place of divide. That's the power of Christ. He reaches into the far distances where we may sometimes be flirting with giving up. forsaking God. You don't exist. If you did, my life wouldn't have this condition. Well, guess what? It rains on the just and the unjust. And you can't dodge the raindrops. God calls us to be poor. Poor. In the simple terms, you thought you came here just to get a little morsel of bread and a little drop of wine. That seems pretty economy to me. But we are bumped up by God's grace when we do receive and our eyes are open and we are seeing the living God right there in front of us. When we come and we receive, when we look and when we are opened up, we are opening up our poorness so that God will fill us with good things. That is the hope to which he gives us. That rain that we're hearing right now, for some, it's a terrible day. And for others, we see that as a hope of a new beginning. God will wash us through and through. He will set our course. He will be with us from the curb to the top and back. He will meet us wherever we travel. So dearly, dearly beloved, you are invited, as I said before, to a great party, a royal banquet. But the only glitch is you have to be poor. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost.